Today I'm here to share all the books I've been reading lately. Hello book friends, I'm Jen and welcome to my reading life and welcome to another reading update. Today I'm going to share with you all the books that I have recently read or DNF'd, might be one or two of those. And I was actually going to add all of the books I am currently reading, but I think I waited a little too long to do this update and now I have so many books, and so I don't want this video to be too long, and I've decided to divide it up into two parts. So today you are going to get all the books that I have recently read, and then you're going to get a little bonus video tomorrow with all the books I am currently reading. But we still have quite a few books to get through today, so grab yourself a cup of something. I'm going to have a quick sip of tea and then we are going to get into all the books that I have read lately. As usual, I am going to go through the books in the order that I enjoyed them, and I'm going to start off with the book that I DNF'd. Then I'm actually going to talk about the books that I reread this month. I feel like they are sort of their own category because obviously I love them enough to reread them, and so I will talk about those in general, and then we'll go through the remainder of the books that I have finished recently in ascending order of how much I enjoyed them. That is how I'm going to structure today's video. Let us start off with the DNF. This is such a hard one to say that I'm DNFing, and I just decided this yesterday actually, but this book has been sitting and I was just slightly over the halfway mark, but it's been sitting on my nightstand for over 2 weeks and I've had zero desire to pick it up. I even tried to get this book on audio. It's narrated by Stevenson, who is one of my favorite audiobook narrators, and not even that was prompting me to want to pick it up and listen to it. And so I have decided to just let this one go, disappointing as that is, and that book is Miss Austen by Jill Hornby. Now, this may be a case of it's me, not the book, or that the book and I just don't quite gel in the way that I was hoping. And I feel like with this, it was clearly incredibly well researched. And having just recently read Jane Austen at Home earlier this year, I really felt like the nonfiction aspects of the story were well represented. The one thing that I had trouble with, and I'm going to call it the tone of the book, because I just couldn't quite make myself believe that it was Cassandra Austen who was telling the story. And this may just be my own personal feelings about Jane Austen, about her family, about her whole world in general. And I just couldn't quite get past the fact that this book didn't quite match up to my own preconceived notions of those things. So take that as it will. This is not a badly written book. Again, this may just be a case of it's me, not the book. But regardless, there are just so many books out there that I want to read that I don't want to have books kind of sitting there partially read and looming over me when I feel like I don't really want to read them. And since I know I can get this on audio from the library, if I ever do decide to pick it up again, I can certainly get it that way. I think I'm just going to watch the new miniseries that came out and call it a day. And hopefully I will enjoy that more than I clearly enjoyed the book. After that disappointing first book, let's get on to 4 books that I absolutely love. These are books that are near and dear to my heart. I loved them all the first time I read them. They were all rereads for me recently. And I'm going to start off with a middle grade book that I finished right towards the end of middle grade March into the beginning of April. And that is Black Beauty by Anna Sewell. And I have been wanting to reread Black Beauty for so many years. This was the very last book my mom read aloud to me as a child, and I have such fond memories of it. And I ended up deciding to listen to the audiobook, which was just lovely. I highly recommend it if you enjoy audiobooks. And yes, we just get the story of Black Beauty. Black Beauty is a horse, and we follow him from his early colt life, I guess you could say, through being a grown horse and changes in ownership and him meeting other horses. And it's just so lovely. Reading this as an adult, I have definitely taken in more of what Anna Sewell, she was definitely trying to make animal cruelty and cruelty to horses the focus of this book. And even though Black Beauty doesn't experience like severe maltreatment, but you still do see mistreatment of animals. And I think she did a really lovely job of bringing that into the story, but making it work in a way that's good for children. And I just love this book. It's so, so lovely, and my heart felt warmed when I finished it. I highly recommend if you've never read Black Beauty. It is a lovely, lovely book. Then next up, my Gilded Age buddy read group. We took a break from reading Gilded Age authors, and we decided to read one of my favorite authors, and we read Lori Colwin's Home Cooking. And I just love this book. I could read about Lori Colwin talking about food all day, every day. I just love her use of language. I love her descriptions of things. I think she is just perfection when it comes to describing food. And even though in this book there are recipes and things that I would never want to make, and it is definitely of its time in sort of the way she describes meals and shopping for food and the kinds of food that's available. I mean, clearly she lived in New York City during the 70s and 80s, so that was a different place than like living in middle America in the 1970s and 80s and what might or might not be available to you food-wise. But I think these days people have much more access to ethnic foods, to unusual foods. It's just fun because it feels like a little time capsule, and I love that. And I just love Lori Colwin, and so I will always sing her praises, but it was a delight to reread this and to discuss it with my lovely bookish friends, Melissa, Susan, and Elizabeth. So thank you ladies for reading this with me. It was a delight. And then next up, I reread a book that I only read for the first time last fall, and that was Near Neighbors by Molly Clavering. And we read this for my Book Jenny Patreon group. This was our very first quarterly read-along. We're doing quarterly read-alongs in the Book Jenny group. You're always welcome to join my Patreon if that is something you would like to do. I would love to have you join us. Our next quarterly read-along will be in July, and I'll be putting out a poll within the next week or two so that we can pick which book we're going to read. So if you'd like to participate in that, you can find the link to my Patreon in the description box below. Near Neighbors is a delightful, delightful book. It is a spinster novel. I read it during Spinster September last year. In this, we follow Miss Balfour. She has recently lost her sister, who passed away suddenly, and is on her own. And she lives in Edinburgh, next door to a very lively family, the Lennoxes. And there are 4 children, 3 girls and a boy, and their mother. And Miss Balfour is very much interested in the Lennox family, though she hasn't gotten to know them because her older sister really ruled the roost, and Miss Balfour did not have a lot of say in her own life and what she got to do and whom she got to associate with. And now that she is on her own, her whole world opens up. And when Rowan, one of the sisters from next door, decides to come over and offer her condolences to Miss Balfour, it sets in motion a friendship and relationship with this family that changes Miss Balfour's life. We also have some other characters who come into her world as well. We get to follow the romances of some of these sisters in the Lennox family, and it is just pure delight. And if you remember when I shared this book when I first read it last year, this is where I first heard the phrase tea jennies. And a tea jenny is somebody who is obsessed with tea and drinks a ton of tea. And I thought, what could be more perfect for me? And I took that phrase and turned it on its head a little bit and named my Patreon group Book Jennies, because that just seemed perfect to me. people who are obsessed with books, which I think many of us here are. But this is such a lovely book. If you like D.E. Stevenson, she and Molly Clavering were the best of friends, and I highly, highly recommend this. It is charming and lovely, and we had a wonderful discussion of this, and I can't recommend it enough. It's a fantastic book. And then lastly, I, of course, read the next volume in the Unselected Journals of Emma M. Lyon, and that was volume 4 for April by Beth Brower. And I'm doing a year-long read-along of the Unselected Journals of Emma M. Lyon. We read one volume a month, and there is a live discussion on my channel on the last Friday if you'd like to join us. I also have a Discord group where you can discuss any aspect of the book in the Discord chats throughout the month, and anyone is welcome to join us at any time. I would love to have you if you are reading or have read the Unselected Journals of Emma M. Lyon. Again, I'm not really going to go into the details of this. You do need to read these in order. Start with volume 1 because each subsequent volume builds on the one before, and you need to follow the relationships that Emma M. Lyon develops over the course of the books. We are currently up to volume 8. I have my fingers crossed that volume 9 comes out, possibly so that we could all read it in September, but I will keep you posted. As soon as I know when it's coming out, I will let you know. Even if it comes out in October or November, I think maybe we will still all read it together because I think that would be delightful. But suffice it to say, volume 4 just gives us more of Emma and all the residents of St. Crispian's, and this is such a fun one. I really feel like the drama, the relationships really kind of step it up a notch in this volume, and the pace of what's happening picks up, and we are really getting into the meat of things now. So if you've read the first 3 volumes, you have nothing but good things to look forward to in volume 4. It's a delight. Now we're going to move on to the remainder of the books that are not rereads, that are books I read for the very first time. Up first is an audiobook that I listened to, I checked out from the library, and that is Days at the Murasaki Bookshop by Satoshi Yagasawa. I was watching one of the lovely Johanna at Me, My Dog, and Books' video, and she talked about reading this book and how much she enjoyed it. And I don't know, I was just in the mood for some Japanese literature, and my library had this on audio on Libby, and I immediately checked it out and started listening to it. And I enjoyed it. It was a solid read for me. But it was funny because our main character, whose name is now escaping me, she comes to stay after sort of a personal crisis at her uncle's bookshop that he owns and runs. And he has some space up above the bookshop where she can live, and then she can work for him in the bookshop kind of while she recovers from this and gets herself back on her feet. And at first she's very reluctant to do this. She hadn't seen her uncle for a very long time, but eventually she does decide to. And I think the one thing that I didn't love about the start of the book is that our main character feels very apathetic, and that is one thing that drives me absolutely crazy in a main character, is when they do nothing. Like, they cannot get out of their own way. And I understand, I know that that happens to people in real life. It's just not something I enjoy reading about in a novel. So I did have a little bit of difficulty with that at first. I think it helped that I was listening to it on audio. I might have stopped reading it had I been reading it in print, but the audiobook helped me kind of get through that. And then I did enjoy the book as it went along. It didn't go exactly where I expected it to go, and I kind of appreciated that. It's not going to be a favorite read for me for sure. It's definitely not even the favorite Japanese lit that I have ever read, but I definitely think it's a solid read. And it's funny because they talk about so many Japanese authors and books, and it completely all went over my head because those aren't books and authors that I am familiar with, because it's not a part of my culture and I can't read Japanese. But it was just fun to listen to the characters talking about these books and their love and affinity for them, even though I had no idea what they were talking about. But it's just like, there's books out there for everybody, and I just love that. So that definitely endeared me to the story. But if you like Japanese literature, then you should definitely add this one to your list. Next up, I read the next book that I was planning to read in reading through all of my unread Agatha Christie novels, and that was By the Pricking of My Thumbs. This is a Tommy and Tuppence mystery, and in this we find Tommy and Tuppence. They have gone to visit Tommy's, I think it's his great aunt perhaps. She's in sort of a senior assisted living type of facility. She's a little bit crotchety. She doesn't like Tuppence at all, which is kind of funny. And they go there, and then she passes away not too long after that. And in the meantime, another woman that Tuppence ended up speaking with while they were at the assisted living had given Tommy's aunt a painting. And there was something about the painting that Tuppence found very, very familiar. And then this woman who had given the painting to Tommy's aunt, was taken out of the assisted living by family and gone to live with family, but she sort of vanishes and nobody seems to know where she is or where they took her. And Tuppence wants to ask her if she wants the painting back. And so Tuppence begins this investigation. And so Tuppence goes off and she starts to investigate, and we kind of follow along with this painting, its significance. There is also a story perhaps of a child who died and was buried behind a chimney. And it got a little bit, I'm going to say, convoluted for me personally. I definitely didn't enjoy this one as much as I've enjoyed many other Agatha Christie's. This was just okay for me in terms of the mystery. What I did really like about it is getting to spend a lot of time with Tuppence and kind of getting to know her a little bit better, and that was kind of fun. So this was a good book. It's not my favorite Agatha Christie, but I am glad to have checked it off the list. Next up, you guys, I did it. I finally read this book that has intimidated me for so very long. What book is it? Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf. And yes, I did it. I decided to take the advice of Tristan from Tristan and the Classics and start reading 12 pages of a classic every day. And doing that, you can get through quite a few classics in the year if you read 12 pages a day. And I read Mrs. Dalloway that way. It was perfectly lovely to do it that way, and I am very glad to have read it. I do say that I think this is a book that I feel like I need to talk about it with people. I'm not sure I have fully taken in everything Virginia Woolf was trying to do in this book, though the more I sit with it, the more I feel like I'm digesting what she was doing. But I still think this is a book I'm going to need to read again, and then maybe again, in order to fully grasp everything she was doing. I think this would be an excellent book to take a literature course and, study Virginia Woolf and really get in depth into this book, because there's a lot going on, and I know I didn't capture all of it in my mind. But I did enjoy reading it. The stream of consciousness does take a while to get used to, but I did kind of find myself getting into the rhythm of it as the story went along. It's not very long. This book that I have, this edition, is actually Mrs. Dalloway on this half, and then it is The Hours by Michael Cunningham on the back. So, I mean, Mrs. Dalloway itself is not, let's see, how many pages is it in this edition? It's only like 200 pages. 208 pages. So it is not very long at all in terms of like a classic novel. So it was very easy to get through in that respect in terms of time taken with it. I do think I need to revisit it. I'm thinking that it might be nice to listen to the audiobook next time and maybe follow along in my book. I don't know. But if anyone has read this and would like to chat about it with me, please let me know, because I would love to discuss this further. I just need to talk about it with someone. Then next up, I read the next book in the Mrs. Polifax mystery series, and that is Mrs. Polifax on the China Station by Dorothy Gilman. And what can I say? I love Mrs. Polifax. She's the best. And she goes to China in this one, and there are some tense moments. Not as tense maybe as a couple of the earlier books, but I enjoyed this one just as much as I enjoy all of the Mrs. Polifax books. And spoiler alert, I've already started the next Mrs. Polifax book because I love her and I just want to be in her world as much as I can be. Next up is a book that was just published last week, and I'm very proud of myself that I pre-ordered this book and it came and I have already read it. So yay me. And that book is The Correspondent by Virginia Evans. This is an epistolary novel, and a thank you to the viewers who alerted me that this book was coming out. I really appreciate it. You know how I love an epistolary novel, and this was not on my radar at all. And I'm really glad that I read it. I enjoyed it. And in this, we are following Sybil Van Antwerp, and she is older. I think she's in her 60s, 70s, and she is a correspondent, as the title says. She writes letters. That's her preferred way of communicating. And she has been writing letters her entire life, and the story is told entirely in letters. I will say that this book tackles the loss of a child in a very upfront manner. If that's something that you have difficulty reading about, I would maybe skip this one. I did not know that going in, and it's not a subject matter that I love reading about really, and I had a hard time with that piece of it. And it is a big piece of the book and of Sybil's life. And I think it was handled well, but it was still hard to read about. And that knocked this down for me. That plus the fact that I found Sybil to have a slightly harder edge to her than I was comfortable with. I did appreciate her growth throughout the book, though a lot of it happens very close to the end and felt maybe a little bit rushed to me. So not a perfect book. One that was a page turner for sure. I really loved sort of all of the different people she corresponds with, from family to friends. There's also a young boy who's the son of someone she used to work with that she corresponds with, who's having some hard times, and she helps him. She corresponds with the dean of the English department at a university. That's a really fun part of the storyline. And one thing that I did really love was how much she talks about books. And she writes to authors, people like Joan Didion and Kazuo Ishiguro and Anne Patchett, who's quoted here on the front cover. She writes to George Lucas, and that was just really fun. And some of them write back, which was even more fun. Lots and lots of literary references in here. At the end of a lot of her letters, she tells what she is currently reading and asks the person she's writing to what they're currently reading. That was really fun. And yes, so lots and lots of good things about this. Also some really hard things in here. So just be aware going into that. I would say the loss of a child is the #1 trigger warning for this book, because I know I personally have a hard time reading about bad things that happen to children and animals in books. I do like to share if that's something that I think might bother other people. But there are probably also some other things in here you might want to look up trigger warnings for, but I think you can probably find those with a little quick internet search. But that one definitely, if that's something that bothers you, then give this one a miss. But I did enjoy it overall. Next up was a book that I buddy read with my lovely subscriber, Jacqueline. We read Amberwell by D.E. Stevenson, and this is the first book in a duology, and we are going to read the second book in May, which is called Summer Hills. But in Amberwell, we follow the Ayrton family, mostly the children of the family as they are growing up. And the children are really left to their own devices. The parents don't really spend a lot of time with them, and the story is taking place, I think it's between the wars, I want to say, and then maybe into World War II a little bit. I read a number of D.E. Stevenson books this month, as you are about to find out, and so I may have mixed up some of the minor details of those books in my mind, but I believe that's the time period for this one. And I really enjoyed this. We mainly follow one of the sisters in the family and what happens to her. But this was just another lovely D.E. Stevenson novel. And the ending of this one does kind of leave you, it's not a cliffhanger per se, but it is sort of an open-ended ending. And so I'm very much looking forward to Summer Hills and to kind of wrapping things up with the Ayrton family and finding out where we go from the end of Amberwell. But I definitely recommend this one. Another great D.E. Stevenson. And in keeping with the love for D.E. Stevenson, the next book that I read was Anna and Her Daughters. And this was for the Cozy Reader Book Club. This was our April pick. And I absolutely love this. In this, we obviously follow Anna and her 3 daughters, and Anna's husband has recently passed away, and it turns out they don't have very much money. And so they are going to have to leave their London home and lifestyle behind them, and Anna decides to move them back to Riddleton, her hometown in Scotland. And at first the girls are very much against this, but ultimately, they don't have any alternative plans or ways and means to stay in London, so they go with their mother. And we follow along with what happens with the family. And the story is told through the youngest daughter's eyes. Her name is Jane. And so we mostly follow Jane and what happens to her, though we do find out what happens to the sisters as well as Anna. And this is just quintessential D.E. Stevenson, slice of life, following this family. And there is a kind of shocking event that happens towards the end of this, and we did have some good discussion about that for the Cozy Reader Book Club, and that did kind of make or break this book for some people, but for me, it didn't deter from how lovely I thought this book was, and I just enjoyed it and highly recommend it. And next up, and yes, I am beginning to sound like a broken record, but I have another D.E. Stevenson book, and I read Listening Valley. And this is the book that came in the spring Small Home Comforts book box, and I just adored this book. It was so lovely. And in this, we follow Tanya. She is a young girl along with her sister who are also being raised similarly to the Ayrtons in Amberwell, without a lot of interference from their parents. The parents have very hands-off parenting style, which I know is more common in the early part of the 20th century, but is just kind of shocking to my modern sensibilities. But as a result, these 2 girls are very sheltered, and the older sister ends up running off, but Tanya stays at home, and we follow along with her and what happens to her. And her life is filled with just some really interesting twists and turns. And I was completely riveted, completely drawn into Tanya's story. I absolutely adored it from start to finish. We do actually get a lot about World War II in this one, which I haven't really read much of yet in the D.E. Stevenson novels that I've read to date. And so that was just another interesting layer to the story for me. But if you haven't read this one and you're a D.E. Stevenson fan, I highly recommend it. And I know this is sort of loosely connected to another D.E. Stevenson novel, which is called Celia's House. And I haven't read that one yet. And I think it actually precedes this one. So I might say read that one first and then read Listening Valley. I mean, I'm not sure that it matters a ton, but if you're considering reading both of them, maybe read Celia's House first, but I still think you can read this as a standalone. Saying that, not having read Celia's House, but I do believe that it's fine. However, just my 2 cents on that, but I love this one. It was so good. And then my last book that I recently read and completed was The Corner Shop by Elizabeth Cadell, and this book was so much fun. I don't know. I'm not going to say this is the best written book I've ever read. I'm not even going to say that the plot itself is particularly well written, but I just loved it. I loved the characters. I loved Elizabeth Cadell's descriptions of things. I was just in it to win it with this one. I don't know how else to put it. There were definitely a lot of coincidences that really helped to move the story along, and I won't say that that was wholly believable, but I just decided to completely suspend my disbelief with this one, and it just didn't bother me. I just didn't care. I was enjoying myself so much. What is the story about, Jen? Let's get into that. In this, we follow Lucille Abbey, and she runs an employment agency for like secretaries. And she has had 3 of her secretaries go to do some work for this professor, and none of them have lasted more than a few hours. He lives sort of out in the countryside in this kind of difficult to access, kind of almost like a castle, and she decides to take it upon herself to go there and find out what exactly is going on. And she meets him, and he's very brusque and sort of off-putting, and they do not hit it off. But through a series of circumstances, she ends up deciding to stay and do the work that he needs doing. And so she, little by little, kind of gets to know him. But she stays and helps him despite the fact that she was actually supposed to be on her way to Paris to work at her aunt's store that she owns while her aunt takes a holiday. And while she's with the professor, she learns of some paintings that his mother did that have gone missing, and there is an art dealer from Paris who is interested in them, and she kind of gets involved in this mystery. And when she goes to Paris, the mystery still isn't solved, and then things all start to happen once she arrives in Paris, and it was just so fun. This is my second Elizabeth Cadell novel. We read The Friendly Air last year for the Cozy Reader Book Club, and we liked it. We didn't love it. We all enjoyed Elizabeth Cadell's writing. The story had some issues that we had issues with, but this one was just so much fun. So if you've never read Elizabeth Cadell, I think this is probably a good place to start. If you've read other Elizabeth Cadell novels, tell me what else by her I should read, because I am finding myself on an Elizabeth Cadell kick. Like, I want to read more by her. And I think there's one, maybe like a little series. Is it like The Lark Sings, or there's something about a lark in one of the titles? I don't know. If you've read that little series, I think it's like a trilogy maybe, let me know, because I'd love to know if that's a good place to go next. But I really enjoyed The Corner Shop, and it was so much fun. I didn't realize when I purchased this used copy of this book that it is in large print. And actually that was really nice. I didn't need to put my glasses on to read this. So that was kind of a little bonus for this book. But it was really delightful. If you want something just kind of light and immersive, I definitely recommend this. Whew. Okay, that was a lot of books. I realize. This is why I decided to separate this out from the books that I'm actually currently reading. Otherwise, I would have been here all day. Thank you so much for watching, for taking time out of your day to listen to me ramble about all of the books that I've read recently. I'm going to do my next reading update before I have so many books to get through next time, because that was a lot and a lot of talking. So I'm going to wrap this up. I would love to chat with you down in the comments. Have you read any of the books that I talked about here? Is there anything you heard me talk about that now you're really excited to read? Let's talk anything and all things bookish down in the comments below. And if you've made it this far, but you don't have anything you'd like to add in the comments, if you could leave me a little emoji, because comments really do help my channel. This time, why don't you leave a little bird emoji, like on this beautiful cover of The Correspondent. I do love these little, I don't know, are they supposed to be robins or something? They're just lovely. Leave me a little bird, your favorite little bird emoji down in the comments below. I do love seeing those, that you were here, that you made it this far. And like I said, those comments really do help my channel. And also, if you could hit that like button, because that also helps my channel too, and subscribe if you aren't already subscribed. I would love to have you join my bookish community. Thank you again so much for being here. And as always, I'll be back with another video very soon. Bye.